pretty well-known fact, Slaking would have been overpowered if it wasn't for that really terrible ability in Truant that stops it from moving every other turn. But just how good would it have been? The Uber tier is for overpowered Pokemon who are too strong for the regular singles play. In Generation 3, however, there weren't a lot of those powerful threats, so Uber only had about 15 Pokemon, so it was only really for the best of the best. However, the Pokemon that were the best of the best in the tier were Latios, Kyogre, and Groudon, who had very high base stat totals. So we're going to be comparing Slaking to them to see how viable it would have been. Slaking has a base stat total of 670, which is the same as Kyogre and Groudon and higher than the one that Latios has, who has 600. This is already super impressive and shows how strong it is, but the individual stats themselves are much more impressive. His attack stat is 106, which means it has the second highest attack stat in the tier, only after Deoxys attack, who has 180, which means that it hits extremely hard. Deoxys attack is very frail, however, which is not a drawback Slaking has, making Slaking better than him at his role. At 150 HP, it's also very strong. It means that it can survive many hits, even without any defensive investment. And it has the 6th highest HP stat in the game. It also has 100 defenses, which is really respectable for the tier, meaning it can survive a lot of hits. And if you invest enough stat points into this, it can become a great physical wall. It only has about 65 special defense, but paired with the special wall like Blissey, it is still more than good enough, even without a good special defensive Mon, since its HP stat makes it strong enough to survive lots of special. One important thing to note is that in Generation 3, the physical stat split still hadn't happened, so the only super effective moves it could be hit by were physical fighting type moves, meaning special defense wouldn't have really come into play anyways. The 100 base speed stat is also really average by modern standard, but in Gen 3, it's more than good enough, and it means that it outspeeds lots of Pokemon for the Uber tier. So now I'm going to talk about the top 3 main threats in the tier. Latios is one of the best Pokemon in the tier, despite having the lowest stats out of the 3, but it has an amazing coverage for both of them. It has very high base speed and can use Thunder for Kyogre and Ice Beam for Groudon, along with Levitate and Soul Dew, making it even better and to deal more damage. Alongside Recover to heal and Refresh to cure status, it's also really hard to take out. And it also has Calm Mind in order to sweep if you needed to. Against Latios, if Slaking is running a Choice Band with attack investment, it'll be able to OHKO Latios with either Double Edge or Shadow Ball. And Latios will outspeed it as well, but it cannot knock out Slakoth fast enough, as even without 0 defensive investment for Slaking, it's still very bulky. It doesn't have a very strong stat move either, since Draco Meteor didn't exist until Generation 4. Next, we can look at Groudon, which is one of the best physical attackers in the tier. Slaking, however, has the advantage in this matchup too, as while neither of them can OHKO each other right off the bat, Slaking outspeeds it by 10 points, meaning using our max attack and speed, Slaking will be able to beat it one-on-one. With Double Edge, it's still a 2-hit KO, even if Groudon has a lot of investment in HP and defense. Another set Slaking can potentially run is a mix set, or a special attacking set, as it has 95 special attack and has a really good coverage into Groudon with Ice Beam or even Solar Beam, taking advantage of Sun setup by Groudon. Both of them would be able to hit KO him as well. Lastly, when considering Kyogre, it can OHKO lots of Pokemon with a rain boosted Surf. It can also set up with Substitute, Calm Mind, and just snowball very far, knocking out entire teams it gets to. It has coverage with Ice Beam and can even kill Blissey with a little setup. Water Spout is also pretty much an automatic OHKO into almost any Pokemon. Slaking with a Choice Band is able to OHKO Kyogre, which it can't do without it, by the way. Crucially, it can also outspeed Kyogre due to its 10-point difference, meaning it doesn't need to face the Water Spout or any of Kyogre's strength, which would otherwise be able to kill it. As we've seen, Slaking can deal with 3 of the most powerful Pokemon in the tier. It can even 2-hit KO defensive behemoths like Lugia, which is very impressive. The only Pokemon that can be able to deal with it is Skarmory. However, Skarmory can also be dealt with by using Magnet Pull with the Magneton, which can easily be able to take it out. One way Slaking could be able to break through it is by running Flamethrower. That would be a much more niche set, rather than a common used one, as you'd want to run a physically attacking Slaking with a Choice Band in order to deal with the main 3 threats of the tier. Some sets it can run would be admin-natured sets with Slack Off, Double Edge, Bulk Up, and Substitute. It could also have a defensive set with Taunt, Toxic Returner, Slack Off, or a mixed attacking set, similar to the ones Tyranitar run. Overall, Slaking without Truant would be a very good and reliable Pokemon. He would be really good with bulky offense teams or hyper offense, which is not very surprising because even with Truant in Gen 3, it was able to reach all the way into UUBL while having one of the worst abilities in the tier.